Hello, friends. I am back from Strongsville, and as you can see, I've got even more beard.
I can grow a beard.
And this is going to be part 2 of my conversation with 3 great collectors. That would be Shane of Shoebox Legends, Brent Richards, and Brian, the High Pop Professor, as they help me decide which are the good sets to choose from for my Hall of Fame player collection going into the 1990s.
You need help.
So, in addition to that, after we get through those years, we ended up having some bonus conversation that I have included in here as well.
An added bonus.
Where we're talking about a variety of subjects. So, stick around and check it out. Hello, friends. I am John, and I am the 3D 80s kid. So we are back, and we left off with 1995 was the last year we covered in part 1. If you haven't seen part 1, it is linked down below in the description. I recommend you check it out before maybe watching this one, because we're going to be hitting the years 1996 through 1999.
You're so completely unbalanced.
As well as a little bit of bonus conversations that occurred afterwards.
You can have me for even longer if you want.
So without further delay, let's get on with the show and dive into 1996.
We understand that you are currently in possession of the prehistoric Iceman from 1996.
Now here's where my plan for slide production completely fell off the rails, and I thought there's no way I am going to continue this, and so I didn't. And now instead of a visual display, I have basically the list from Trading Card Database.
Okay.
So,
well, those look really awesome up till now, so we'll give you props on all that for sure. Yeah, so you got the continuation of Finest and Flair and all that kind of stuff. 96 Bowman Best, yeah, all that's good.
I can go first on this one. I chose basic upper deck.
Okay.
And what I think is cool about these, I don't know how well it'll come across on camera, but this year, each one of the photos on the front of the card, they actually give you a caption right above the player name that talks about where that photograph was taken from and the date, and kind of gives you some context around the photo. And I think that's
I've never seen that on a card before.
Yeah, exactly. The backs are designed well, just like you would expect from Upper Deck, with a second photograph and everything. But what really highlights this one for me is just that caption element. You know, I spent a lot of time as a kid trying to do like detective work or see if I could figure out where any particular photo on my baseball card was from. So I think it's kind of cool that Upper Deck did that for us with that 1996 release.
I think that was Roger Clemens hitting.
Yeah,
yes, that was the Roger Clemens at bat right there.
There's only 2 cards. There's only 2 cards of Clemens hitting, and that's one of the 2. So lots of cards. There's only 2 of them, so that's pretty cool. He had a Bowman Chrome as well, 2002 or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, because I guess what interleague play started in the 90s there. Okay.
Either that or playoffs. I'm not sure which is going on, but he has information on there. He said he.
Yeah, actually, so the caption says singles in his first MLB at bat, May 23rd, 96. So that was actually a photograph from his first at bat, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that is kind of cool to have that info on there.
Yeah, exactly. SPX, I just pulled one up, but they had some holograms that year that were just insane. I don't know how sometimes when it's a light coming from light, it just doesn't show you. But these die cut holograms are some of the best holograms ever made. And 96 SPX. So if I had to get one card, it would definitely be that. They're just ridiculous, but it's hard to show on this screen because I don't have one to show. I have actually a couple, come to think of it, that are on the shelf. I have a Bagwell and a Vigio, so this might show up actually. I don't know if this is 96. I'd have to look, but you can't see the hologram on there. But when you see it in real life with the light, the hologram is actually really, really good. But the 96 ones are really great, but they do have this die cut shape to them. But those are awesome. I had an example of an artist proof museum collection, or actually it's Starburst by this point. of Sosa here just to show off. But when they started doing the Starburst and having the more rare artist proof, it was kind of printed all in the background. But this was the Naturals card from 96. But they're just gorgeous. And if I had to have one Topps card, I know you're not repeating players, but I can repeat players in my collection. Luckily, the 196 Topps card I'd have easily that one. Obviously, he broke the streak in 95. There it is. It's just an incredible card.
So I'm sensing you were a big Ripken fan.
Yeah.
Even though you're down in Texas. So.
Yeah, Ripken and Ryan are my two biggest PC guys. So that right there would be the Topps card I would have easily if I only could have one.
95 was where it took me a long time to build that slide. So by 96 here, I lost all hope of continuing the visual display. And I broke down and just made a list of TCD or trading card database major release sets. So here's that full list. But you come prepared. So what are your choices for 1996?
All right. Well, I will say that, from 90 through 94 or so, the choices were pretty clear cut. I think the toughest years for me to choose were probably 95 through 97 and 98. Those were way tougher because now you've got so much innovation. As you can see on this list, there's so many to pick from, is that if you pick one, you're denying another one. And so it's really tough because you can make a case, a really strong case for like a whole bunch of them. So I think as far as hobby significance, there's two for me that rise to the top here. I will say there is Select Certified for 96. This is the year that the mirrors became really, and so the design is not all that different. Here's a Ripken, here's a Bagwell, and then we've got Pudge Rodriguez. And so the design, again, it's not that different from 95 per se, but they also had these mirrors, and the mirrors were way more limited. So instead of being, something like 1 in 8 packs for Mirror Gold, they now had Mirror Reds, and they had Mirror Blues, and they had Mirror Golds, which I don't have a Maddox for, which were just outstanding. And they were limited to 90 copies for the red, a print run of 45 for the blues, and a print run of 30 for the golds. And so
that's a low number all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden. And they weren't serial numbered. It was just a print run. And so these cards were just, no one had ever seen a print run of 30 before this year of Select Certified. So even to this day, of the year 96, a lot of really serious collectors, big-time 90s collectors, are going to consider Select Certified to be sort of the set from 96. So I think there's a big case to be made for that. However, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's also the very first year of Topps Chrome. And so here's a Topps Chrome refractor. And so I think my winner here is going to be Topps Chrome just by a hair. It's not that I don't like Select Certified from 96. I love it. I love them both. But Topps Chrome has had such a hobby impact, and it's had such an important longevity even today. In modern day, it's always been relevant. Topps Chrome has always been such a famous set, such an important set. You got the refractors in there, and this being the very first year of it, it has these unique sort of studs in the background. Now, this happens to be the refractor version of it. It being the first year of Topps Chrome, they had some issues with centering. It was really tough to get a good centered copy of any card, refractor or not. And so, it's one of those things. I just think that because we have not seen a continuation of Select Certified or what would become Pinnacle Certified. It's sort of, it's still important in the hobby, but because this continues to every year release and re-release in all multiple sports, I think you can't really beat the current modern day continuation of this hobby significance with a set like Topps Chrome. And so that's my choice. That's my winner for 96.
Well, I think I might actually choose a Topps Chrome card instead of a base card because similarly in the 80s, I went with one of them being a Tiffany instead of the normal, just so I have that as a different sample. So
right. And so the refractor. So I will say, depending on the grade that you're looking, the grade tier you're looking for, the 96 Topps Chrome refractors, they can be very pricey. It's one of the higher cost to get into those kinds of players in that set. And part of the reason why is because Topps Chrome, it was a relatively large set.
So what you're telling me is the base card is a good enough representative. Is what
well, again, I don't know your budget, and I don't really know, different. You still have lower tier Hall of Famers that wouldn't be as expensive, but it's the tremendous. But I might target, like, for example,
when you say not as expensive, we're not talking anywhere close to like 93 finest.
No, not that expensive. Like that Greg Maddux I showed, I graded that myself, and it's a PSA assigned 8. If you're looking for something like a PSA 9, that's still going to run you like $300. And so
I don't care about the number on the slab. So 8s are totally.
I cover them up. I don't really care either. But that 8's probably like 120, something around there. So, but there's quite a condition scarcity for that. But you can certainly acquire a 7 or a 6 for a pretty affordable price. It still looks great. I cover up all my grades with stickers anyway, because I don't want to be distracted by them. So,
all right.
We go to 1997.
But yeah.
So as we continue, it gets even crazier. Here's my 97 list.
It's easy for me because it was the first Bowman Chrome, and I went crazy over it. So 97 Bowman Chrome to me. Now, the international refractors are the good ones. Now, you may not want to pay for that, though. But they had Bowman Chrome. They had Bowman Chrome International, where it had the flag of the guy behind him. They had Bowman Chrome refractors, where it was just a refractor. And then they had Bowman Chrome International refractors, where it had the flag behind it and it's a refractor. Those are the rare ones. Those are the most valuable. But take your pick, whichever one is affordable. I would go with the Bowman Chrome, at least international, because they're not that expensive of Hall of Famers. There's some rookies in there that are, Halliday and stuff like that have some pretty significant value. If you get a Griffey International refractor, it's expensive. But that would be my choice by far on 97, because that's where it started. Now Bowman Chrome dominates everything in the sport.
I like it. So I went a different direction than Brent here too. I went with Skybox EX2000.
I knew you were going to pull that card.
In 1997. So this is hopefully, I think it actually is coming across halfway decently on camera, but this middle section that's like orange is actually acetate. It's see-through, so it's got that going on. It's got crazy shiny cardboard stock on the border, amazing foil work. It's got gold foil inlaid. It's like, for a base card, this kind of exemplifies the over-the-top creativity and competition that resulted in the 90s, as well as any other one that I can think of. And so I would recommend this. And this is just the base card. Every single card coming out of the pack looked like this. It's not numbered. It's not terribly expensive. Of course, there are rare parallels and things, but you don't need to go down that road to get to capture the cool factor. You can get that out of just the base. So that's my choice for 97.
Yeah, if you've heard people talking about essential credentials and these unicorn cards that are worth thousands and thousands of dollars, it came out of that stuff. But yeah, those are impossible. That one is just a beautiful card. Obviously, that Griffey does have some value, but if you're going with another Hall of Famer, you could probably get them fairly affordable, but they're not going to be dollar cards or anything like that. But yeah, those are just really, really good looking cards when you see them in person. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're gorgeous. Because my first year back as an adult was in basketball cards, and the basketball sets are gorgeous of those too. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, then it's 97. The list gets even crazier. We're up to somewhere around 50 different choices.
So
what do we got for 97?
So 97, again, like I said, 95, 6, 7, especially those 3 years, for me, they were the toughest ones. And I kept going over and adding things, subtracting things, because the fact is, you really at some point could just say Topps Finest for every year, and you would have a pretty strong list, really, for almost every one of them, except 98. For some reason, that one just isn't as good. But pretty much any other year, you can't go wrong with something like that. But I also did want to get some other representation in there, and
Yeah.
so so there were two sets that that really kind of did it for me, and one of them I suspect, well, I think the top one I chose as my winner. I suspect I'm not the only one that chose it as the winner. But this secondary, the runner-up that I have, the honorable mention, I might be the only one for this one, but it's a really cool set that is called Donruss Preferred. And so Donruss Preferred had cards that came in these tins. They were metal tins. Actually, here, let me. It's going to fall off the back. Here's the metal tin for 97 Donruss Preferred. And so here's a Greg Maddux tin, of course. And they came in 5-card cellophane wrappers inside those tins. They also had different tiers of cards. They had the bronzes, they had silvers, they had golds. This is a platinum, and this is a platinum die cut. It's called Cut to the Chase. So it was a parallel that they had. You can kind of see the die cut on the top and on the sides. So beautiful cards, beautiful etched foil all over the place. One of the crazy things they had in this set, though, is they actually had a beautiful partial parallel insert that was called it was called Precious Metals. This is not to be confused with Precious Metal Gems, but you can see it's the exact same image as you had on this platinum Cut to the Chase die cut. Except this card is actually made of 1 gram of platinum, and it has it has a print run of 100. And so this card is actually assayed by the Mitsubishi Corporation, because it actually has a 1 gram of either gold or silver or platinum like baked into the card, and a print run of 100 made. So really limited, pretty pricey to come into these. But even the base set is just gorgeous. It's beautiful, and people don't talk about the set much. And so I think it's absolutely one of my favorites. Like I said, it's my honorable mention. It's my runner-up. I think for 97, the winner in my book, and I suspect other people's book, is going to be the EX 2000 set with a gorgeous acetate window. I can look at you through this card. But it's just stunningly gorgeous. Not only is there the acetate window in the background with a light blue sky background, the edges have a hollow foil refractor finish, and these are just the base cards. So you've got texture with the different layers on top of the acetate that are popping out at you. You have got the refractor finish. You got these super thick cards because the thin layer of acetate is sandwiched between the cardboard on the front and the cardboard on the back. So here's the back of this one, and then the front. And of course, this is also the inaugural year, the first year that they had credentials and essential credentials. And so here's the essential credentials that has the star field in the background on the edge on the border. And I know that essential credentials probably came up. They may have come up in other years as well. In this year, they were numbered out of 99 for the essential.
All right.
So because of the first year of that, but really because of the amazing design of just the base cards, I've got to go for this 97 EX 2000 is going to be my pick for that one.
I think you're right in line with Shane on that one. And like I mentioned with him, I was familiar with that set of cards from my first year back doing Hall of Fame basketball players. So, which they have cool looking cards on the basketball side as well. So,
yeah. Yes, they do. Yeah, that was one more thing that made that set sort of stand out, is that it existed for other sports as well. And so for multi-sport collectors, it became well known, through all avenues in the hobby, all sports. They were looking at that, having those same kind of designs and inserts and things like that, parallels. So yeah, but they're great though. Great cards.
All right.
It's a different time. 1998.
And it gets even longer. 98.
We're getting tough now. What would be the best 98?
I have mine picked out if you want me to go while you're looking, Brent.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So I went with Bowman's Best this year, which I know Brent chose for the prior year for the international refractors, but I chose 98 Bowman's Best just for these standard refractors. So this is the Pedro Martinez. This would technically fit your criteria as a non-rookie Hall of Famer. He also had a really big season in 98, so I think this is a cool card for that reason. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I think I've heard others say this, and Brian can certainly confirm it, I think these are the first serial numbered refractors in the hobby. So that's a pretty significant development that came out. And obviously they just look incredible as well. You've probably heard other modern collectors say it, but Topps in general cared and did a whole lot better job with their shiny cards in the late 90s through like early to mid 2000s than they do present day. So for me, 1998 Bowman's Best, if you want to go refractor, they're numbered to 400, but they're not prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that since you said it was serial numbered, what the count was. So
yeah, they're all numbered to 400. There's an atomic refractor version that's numbered to 100 that has some extra crazy shine, but I actually like the regular refractors numbered to 400 a little bit better. And these are not expensive. They're not, maybe $20 to $30 depending on which Hall of Famer you are going after. So
yeah, I mean, if you're avoiding Griffey and Ryan in this whole list, you can find affordable stuff. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
just like
got
in 93
Ryan on my wall. So
I think these are important for the same reason that 93 finest refractors being the first refractor overall. I think these being the first serial numbered refractor, which those kind of dominate the hobby today. That kind of makes it a significant set.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time arguing with you on that one. It's probably as good as it gets if you're not going base. Now, if we're allowing for parallels and being able to get some refractors that aren't super expensive, the Top Stars in Steel has some crazy inserts and stuff in there. They're not super cheap. So the gold parallels are even a little bit of money, but the ones that have the domed holographic are expensive cards. But yeah, I think you probably hit the nail on the head on that one. If we're allowing for some parallels, I think the refractors, and there's a lot of people that like base refractors better than the atomic, because throughout the years, all it does is just kind of make it more busier, and the regular refractor is just real clean looking, but it still has the pretty shine. So I'm with Shane on that one.
all right. 98. I think this is the longest list of the decade. I think there were 60 major release sets here. Go for it. What's your pick?
Yeah, so here's where I'm going to probably deviate from everyone else out there, because with so many sets and so many amazing sets, I mean, you could almost throw a dart at the dartboard, and anywhere it lands, it's going to be something amazing or something awesome. So I've got two sets here that kind of, I think they're great, but it's not that I don't think other sets aren't also great. There's really, like I said, there's a whole bunch of choices you could make here. So I will say the 98 Metal Universe set, interesting set because the background is so different depending on each player. And so, for example, the Barry Bonds card in this set has the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco in the background. You've got the, I'm trying to remember, was it David Cohn that had the Twin Towers in the background? And so some of these cards would have either geographic locations or features about where that player was from or where they played. And so that was interesting. And so that was really cool. It was also the first year they had precious metal gems parallels for the baseball anyway. And so it was a more significant, hobby significant set than almost any of the other ones that was out there. Another one I would pick as well. It was the very first year they had Topps gold label, and so that was another choice we could pick for that one as well. But I think I am going to stick with Metal Universe for my choice. it could be a bunch of them, like I was saying, but I just think if we're including hobby significance, then I think we have to go. I think this is probably the clear-cut winner here. So
I noticed they were in the list in prior years. Was there something particular about 98 for them that was different then?
yes. So yeah. You're asking the right questions. Yeah, Fleer Metal. I mean, they went back to 96. They had 90 cards in 96, 97. It was not until 98 that they had the Precious Metal Gems parallel that was serial numbered to 50 copies. And that was the first time and only time they had them. The first 45 of those copies were inserted into packs. Serial numbers 46 through 50 there was a redemption card that was inserted into the packs that would, if you redeemed it, they would get the entire set as Precious Metal Gems. They all had the same serial number on them. So you would get this.
Geez.
Yeah. So there's 5 like golden tickets existed out there. And if you got one of those 5, you got the entire set as whatever it was, serial number 47 out of 50 for the Griffey, 47 out of 50 for the Maddox, 47 out of 50 for the Barry Bonds, all of them. And right now there was it's funny. Just yesterday there was listed on for sale. It was the PMG for Ken Griffey Jr. and it was in a Beckett 9, which is crazy because these PMGs, these cards are so condition sensitive. There's a lot of edge chipping with how they were made.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of these cards, I don't have a PMG to show for this year. And it's so pricey. A Greg Maddox PMG might run somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 to $4,500. And that might be for like a 7 or a 6 grade. Because they're just impossible to find and they have edge chipping. But there was a Griffey listed for sale, I believe, for $85,000. It was a Beckett 9. Yeah, and it was actually serial numbered. I believe it was 46 out of 50. So it was from one of those complete sets, and so it was not actually a pack issued card, which is probably why
it got in that good a condition.
It got as high a grade as it did. And there was an 8 that sold last year, Griffey PMG, I believe, for $60K. So yeah, a little pricey. I wouldn't go for the PMGs. I would just go for the base.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about me choosing the PMGs there.
Yeah,
so
that one's a little. I don't know. I don't.
I'd already heard about those from the basketball time collecting.
Yeah, well, football. I was going to say football, and they had them. They had them in '97 in basketball. They had them as the greens and the reds, but baseball didn't have them during those years. So baseball just wasn't as, people today would just call it not as hobby significant because they didn't have that ultimate chase for these cards. The other thing about that set that I think makes it intriguing is the fact that Fleer Metal this is a very thin card stock. So many of the sets that I like are the ultra premium, the thick cards. They made them really high quality. That was not the purpose of this set. This set was supposed to be something like edgy and fun and out there and for kids. And it was a retail product as well, I think. And so it was supposed to appeal to kids, which also means that they're even harder to find because, like kids who would pull them out of packs from Walmart or Target, who the heck knows if some kid, oh, here's a shiny card. What's this? Their mom throws it away or whatever. It wasn't being opened by serious collectors exclusively like you had for a lot of the hobby releases. And so that just contributes to the overall, frothing demand for these PMGs is that, yeah, there's 50 of them out there, but it's kind of like the Pacific retail reds that there are ghosts. You just don't see them because even though they made 123 of them, good luck finding them. They never surface. No one knows how many actually exist and survived to this day. So I think that's what drives a lot of that crazy demand and crazy prices that go along with them. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Good info there.
You believe it's the year 1999.
And that list actually got slightly shorter, I believe, for 99, but not much. So there we go.
Yeah, 99. Oh, yeah, you had Showcase in there. Okay. Yeah, tons of Pacific. Like I said, there's tons of different Pacifics, and a bunch of them are just amazing. But he got the gold label. That's
Yeah,
really
looks like we lost some companies, but other companies just exploded with their offerings.
yeah, no doubt. Oh man, you already picked one, Shane?
So I got out of the hobby in '96. So this is like my dark ages here. One that sticks out to me is maybe Metal Universe, just because they're really creative cards, and they were popular in some of the other hobbies as well, like basketball, as you know, John. So Metal Universe might be up there. And then
Well, is that where the PMGs come out of?
Yeah, but
exactly. Obviously, those would be probably cost prohibitive at this point. But and then
98 though over 99. So yeah,
right.
But no one cared back then. I mean, no one. All that came way later when someone realized how rare the Michael Jordan was, and then it sold for a bunch of money, and then everybody's like, "Wow, it's in baseball," and for a couple of years and stuff like that. But nobody cared about that stuff, so it wasn't the stuff you're going after. It was an oddball set back then. But now the PMGs being so limited, and they're beautiful. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But yeah, that's a good one. But I would have gone with the prior year.
Agreed. The other one I'd mentioned, it's a little repetitive, but if for some reason you didn't go with the Bowman's Best refractor in '98, '99 is equally cool, maybe even cooler. So obviously it doesn't have the significance of being the first serial numbered refractor anymore because they had done it the year prior. But these are numbered to 400 consistently, just like the ones previously. And they are arguably like the most gorgeous, shiny cards that I have in my collection. It doesn't come across great in this camera angle, but they look incredible. And the etching, all in the wrinkles of the player uniforms and the cleats and the bat and helmet. When you hold one of these in hand, it looks like just something from a science fiction movie or something. They're really insanely bright. Also numbered to 400 and also similarly affordable to the 98. So if you didn't go with Bowman's Best in 97 or 98, I would put it on the list for 99.
Yeah. Are the atomics to 100?
Yeah, same. I think the numbering's consistent. The standards are 400 and the atomics are 100. But in both years, I like the regular refractor better than the atomic.
Yeah, that's true. And Topps Tech was kind of a big innovation because it's all acetate plastic cards. So Tech kind of, people hate it because there's a billion different variations of all that stuff. You cannot be a collector of that whole set, even of a specific player, because there's so many different patterns they did. But if you just want one, they're clear plastic cards and they're pretty cool. But yeah, that Bowman's Best for sure.
I could be wrong, but I feel like I may have heard Brian say not too long ago that Topps Tech ruined player collecting for him, and he refuses to buy any of the cards as a result of that. So
it ruined player collecting for everybody who was trying to get everybody's card because you couldn't do it anymore. And of course, one of ones and stuff ruined all that as well. But yeah, it definitely did. But I would go gold label here because they're just unbelievably beautiful cards, and they did have the different levels of those and different rarities to that as well. But you can get those cheap, but they look amazing. The Topps gold label, really, really good looking cards. It was kind of an innovative looking card back then as well. But that's probably what I would go with in this year if we're not going with the others.
All right. So we're in our final year of the decade, and the list is slightly shorter, just under 60. And the other thing I notice is there are less companies, but each company has made more sets. So
yeah, this is that's exactly right. This is when, again, it's I such a hard time picking these because you had so many to pick from, and people are going to say Fleer Mystique, or they're going to say Fleer Brilliance, or they're going to say Finest, and like they're all correct, like they're all amazing cards. You could say the EX Century from that year is fantastic. Like here's a Sean Casey like an autograph. I got a couple of them. Here's a Skybox Premium. These are amazing cards. And they're so amazing that I have a really hard time, picking anything. And so I'm going to kind of go the other way with this one. And I'm just going to sort of throw my hands up in the air and say, you know what? I'm just going to go back to the basics here. And one of my favorite sets just that I was buying in 99, so I have a lot of them, is just, and this is one I guarantee no one else said because I'm just kind of rebelling against it at this point. 99 Stadium Club. I love 99 Stadium Club. I just do. The imagery, the photography are just fantastic. Here's a Jeff Bagwell. Here's a, who the heck is this? Pudge Rodriguez. Here's a Cal Ripken. There's just a beautiful cards. Here's a Frank Thomas. There's a Big Hurt. Gorgeous cards. Beautiful. There's Larry Walker. Here's a Greg Maddux sliding under Kevin Polkovich's tag.
That's a different card for a pitcher.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, they didn't shy away. Here's another Sean Casey. He's my guy. So here's this one autographed. But I always thought these were they were fairly affordable packs, and for the price, I always felt the value was there. I always really liked those cards. They had Stadium Club chrome inserts and chrome refractors were there as well. They weren't too expensive, and high gloss, thick coating. They had high quality of production, so the cards you were getting they seemed like they were mint out of the pack, unlike a lot of other ones that we've talked about today. So yeah, it's not a super duper high end, ultra thick, glossy, acetate, shimmery, limited thing. It's just I'm kind of returning to just a traditional, beautiful presenting image, photo, solid production, good value. I love it. Very clean design, borderless cards. I love it. So, not that I don't love the shiny stuff too, because I do. But,
oh yeah.
But that's just that'll be my unique pick for this one, because I guarantee no one else said that, especially with all the other sets that exist for 99.
I noticed you keep showing the Pedro cards. I was wondering if I could get mine in my collection year matched to the year he tossed this guy around.
Yes,
I'll never forget it. Yep.
Nope.
So.
I was like, "What is going on?" Couldn't believe it. But yeah, he lost.
It was, it was right up there as far as Ventura in a headlock moment. I mean, just classic. So
nothing to me compares to the Marichal bat to the head. But the two in my era was that one, and then when Alomar spit in the umpire's face, he went from hero to hated immediately, and I really hate that because he was awesome. But that
it
one
almost overshadows his career now. Which he's a top 10 to me all-time second baseman.
Yeah, he's way up there.
But he doesn't get that respect. So
yeah, he really shouldn't have done that. But he was hot-headed and got mad and did it, and I was like, oh man, really wish he hadn't done that because I really, really liked him. But that and the Pedro throwing the old man down were the two things that just kind of like, oh my gosh, kind of changed it for a lot of people. As far as one moment can change everything for somebody.
I like the Pedros towards the end of the decade too, because he was in an era of like Sandy Koufax dominance from 98 through 2003 or so. So towards the end of the decade, those cards represent big seasons.
Honestly, you look at his numbers compared to the era.
It's insane.
Koufax was doing it during the era of pitching dominance.
Yeah.
Right? So him versus the rest was not as big of a gap. Whereas Pedro, man.
Insanity.
Yeah, Pedro's 4 or 5 year run, Maddox's 4 or 5 year run, and Randy Johnson's 4 or 5 year run in that era, all at a little bit different times, but kind of right there. And
I was living in Massachusetts at the time, and I could tell every start was must watch TV.
And he was small, so it was just kind of an amazing thing.
Oh yeah, because Randy Johnson, the guy was huge, so of course he's throwing fast. But and Maddox, that guy could hit like a fly exactly where the fly is if he wanted to. I mean,
yeah, it was amazing. They were rattling off every single Cy Young between those three guys and Clemens.
It was quite the era of those pitchers.
Yeah.
I put all three of them in top 10 pitchers of all time. And they were all the same, almost the same overlapping dominance. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the decade. That's the 90s. We're already at the end of that thing.
Yeah, that was the 90s. So thank you guys for your input. I am got some thinking to do, combined with whatever Brian's gonna say. And I imagine once I come up with my actual plan, I'll put out another video showing my goal cards. So
yeah, that'll be.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I look forward to following along as it progresses here. So
that's gonna be cool. But yeah, Brian's gonna have to temper his usual tastes because you're not gonna buy any of that stuff. He's gonna have to pick some more realistic stuff than the stuff he gets. Some cards that are amazing. I mean, like you can't find those cards.
Oh yeah, I am. My hope for I think all of this is that combined with if I have to get it raw to grade, maybe $50 is a maximum per card.
If you're going 50, then you can get a lot of good ones we were talking about. Easy.
So
yeah.
I mean, preferably I should be able to get a lot of them for basically the cost of grading.
Yep.
So
yeah, almost everything we talked about.
Do you anticipate in the future, John, like whenever you eventually get through that you would continue on decade by decade, or is that so far out you haven't even thought about it yet?
I am purely focused on Hall of Fame player collecting. So those guys got to get in the Hall of Fame first.
Makes sense.
And then I'll care.
Yeah,
so
good answer.
Yeah. And right now it's there you can't really get a full collection really past the 90s at all. So we just had our first guy that didn't start till the 2000s with Ichiro and also Mauer, I think. So but
it'll slowly come. You got your work cut out for you in the 90s anyways.
Yeah, I've got my work cut out for me in the 1890s especially.
Yeah. So. For sure.
You're going to need somebody else to do that countdown. I'm not that guy.
Yeah, those Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
grading cost.
I haven't gone, there yet. My oldest card right now still is T206. So, but I'm kind of thinking I want to start getting a few after I've at least got all the inner circle pre-war guys, which I'm getting close to that point. So, but thank you guys for your input. Really appreciate it. And I'll be putting this video together here for next week. So
look forward to it.
Thanks for having us. This was great.
Look forward to seeing what Brian says too. So we'll have fun with this.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Well, I was about to say, I stopped collecting in 2000 and part of the reason was, I felt like by 99 we were getting so inundated from all sides by how many, like you said, there are only so many companies, but each one seems to have 6, 7, 8 different releases coming at you. What can you do?
Yeah, which one are you supposed to pick?
So yeah, it's a tough thing. It almost became, it's too much to pick from, and so you can't have everything. So I don't know. I mean, it's nice to have choices. Don't get me wrong, but you go to the restaurant and you got a menu that looks like the phone book. What are you supposed to pick? You pick one thing. I don't know. It's tough.
It just seems like they made themselves into failure with making that many different choices. I mean,
yeah, tough to say. I mean,
why not just make a low end, a medium, and a high end? I mean.
Yeah, and that worked for a while, I felt like that's kind of what we had around like 94, where or 90, because Upper Deck, you had your Upper Deck, then you had your Collector's Choice, and then you had your SP.
Yeah.
And that was it, right? And that was it. Donruss, right? You had your triple play was down here, and then you had your Donruss and Donruss Studio, and then whatever it was, you had your Donruss Elite or Donruss Preferred or Donruss whatever Limited or whatever it was for that year. You had something else a little higher end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it got to be too much of a good thing in my estimation.
And so it almost feels to me the manufacturers themselves killed the boom.
To some degree, I think I don't I'm not going to disagree with that. I think there was something that happened where by the time we hit some of the early to mid 2000s, there was a lull. There was a lull in the hobby. The boom was over, and it went into a lower popularity phase for that time frame, which is fascinating to me because you look at some of the low numbered, we know what these, essential credentials and PMGs, we know the crazy, prices that they sell for from the late 90s. But a lot of these low numbered cards from like 2003 or 2004, whatever it was, Leaf certified or whatever they are, they're actually very affordable for some reason, and they're still numbered to like 25 or whatever for these mirror golds and stuff, but they're not as expensive.
When they make that many different high-end products, that ultimately not all of them become the ones people want to keep long term. And
yeah, this is sort of like the the 50 or 100 one of ones they make every year. At some point, there's a saturation point where you've reached that critical mass where you're making too many limited things where they're not even limited anymore. So, how special are they really?
Yeah,
I don't know.
And you look at it, isn't 99 the year when the TCG cards started as a thing here in the US? So
Pokemon, the first year of Pokemon, at least for US cards, was 99. That's correct.
So there you go. The sports card companies turned them all into high-end products, turned the kids away, and turned them all into Pokemon collectors. So,
well, I don't know. I mean, the hobby seems to be experiencing a pretty big, Pokemon boom. I know the grading companies are grading more TCG cards than they are baseball cards, by a wide margin. Even if you compare TCG to all sports cards, they are. The one thing that does make me a little concerned about that is that at some point, I think it's tempting to race into Pokemon. It's like, oh, it's a new hot thing. And people look, oh, it's a track record of 25, 30 years they've been doing this. It's like, yeah, but something doesn't sit right with me though. Just about, it's one thing to, well, it worries me that there's no checks on the print runs of anything. It's like yes, there's worldwide appreciation for Pokemon and love for it. So it's true. Now you have, potential fans and buyers in Europe and Asia and all over the place. Right. And so you've got a way larger market. I get that. But there's something to be said if something is numbered out of 100 and that's all there is in the world. And there's no second printing or third printing or fifth printing. Right. That's it. That's all there is. There's something to be said about that, because I feel like, you can chase after all of the, shiny ultra rares, whatever, ultra hollow, whatever patterns they have. I'm not too familiar with Pokemon, but the fact that we don't know how many are out there, I mean, that would prevent me just from a sheer like investment standpoint. That would make me very uneasy, jumping too fast, too far into that end of the pool. So sure. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people that collect it and there's a lot of demand right now. I'm worried about the supply end of things, because you can't outrun that. At some point, look, the Donruss Elite cards from 91, 92, they were selling like hotcakes, back when, the hobby was booming at that time. But at some point, when the hobby no longer booms, what happens when you got this crazy high print run? You can't outrun that. At some point at the end of the day, you're going to have to reckon with the fact that, well, they made a whole bunch of them. And when the demand wanes, there's going to be plenty of supply to fill the gaps, to let people that want to have those cards have those cards. So,
yeah, I mean, it made me think of 89 Griffey when you start in terms of supply, because I mean, I wonder what the card will do, 40 years from now, when all the folks that are, saw him play are gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. You've got, well, and yeah, I mean, how many more of these cards are still sitting in packs somewhere that haven't been opened even.
Yeah.
You know, aside from the fact that they apparently printed entire sheets of this card, at least that's the rumor. You know, so who knows? And
I
that's
mean, iconically, it's viewed like the 52 mantle of our era. But
that's correct. Yeah. Well, same thing. Griffey is the mantle of the 90s, right? He's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy. Even if he wasn't your team, you had respect for him because he was, you know, Griffey, like Mantle. They transcended the hobby. You know, they made it into public awareness. You know, Griffey was on commercials. He was the cool guy. You know, he had his backwards hat, and he was the epitome of cool and awesome in the 90s. And even if you weren't really following baseball, you knew who that guy was. He had his own video games. He had his own, you know, like he had his own, you know, aura about him. And so I think that's part of the reason why you see him as the primary Pareto guy of the 90s. You know, he's the guy. So yeah, what does that mean for this? I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a problem for us until, you know, we're all died off. You know, then what happens to the value when, you know, the people that didn't, you know, watch them are still around? Will it hold with how many they are? Because, you know, the mantle, there's only 2,000 something graded,
right?
Versus, you know.
Well, that's also why the mantle's like a $50,000 card, you know, or whatever, depending on grade. You know, it's or more. If it's a mid grade, it's like, you know, hundreds of thousands. Okay, but again, it's so many more people are out there that know Mantle, and even once the people that watched him play are no longer around, it's like people still collect Ty Cobb, people still collect Babe Ruth. You know, people still like Lou Gehrig and collect, you know, even though, you know, we may have not have seen Christy Mathewson play, but you know, people like those cards, want those cards. They're desirable. We know what they did. They're enshrined.
The difference with them, though, is any card you pick of those pre-war guys, you know, the T206 is the maybe the highest population versions. If you look at the master, you know, not irregardless of back type quantities, those go up into the 4,000s. But
yeah, well, they have the natural built-in scarcity. They don't have to have anything serial numbered because it's a miracle that anything that survived from over 100 years ago is still around and intact and is not like a tattered, torn in half, you know, ragged napkin. So it's amazing that those cards even exist, and if they happen to be in a 3 grade, that's incredible. Like, that doesn't even happen very often. You know, you're lucky to get a 1.5. And some of those are fantastically presenting too somehow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it amazes me that I'm collecting cards now where there's less than 100 of them in existence, type of thing.
Right. And you know, and if you're talking about the pre-war stuff, yeah, that's the natural scarcity, which you know, is way different than the manufactured scarcity. But again, I would prefer manufactured scarcity over no scarcity at all, and they're just printing them to the moon.
Well, sure.
So, you know, at some point, you know, if you're living in the 90s era, you know, that's what we have. You know?
Well, see, now at least the 90s era, they bothered to make cool looking different inserts.
Yeah, well, you know, that was the one.
I feel like it's lazy now.
Yeah, well, I think part of that is because you have, you know, competition is what drives innovation. I've always said this. And so, like, my favorite, I felt kind of bad with this list because, you know, my top choices, I don't think I had a single card picked from my favorite card company of the 90s, Pinnacle. Pinnacle is my very favorite company because of all the crazy stuff that they were innovating with as far as Dufex technology and acetate and die cuts and foil and all kinds of fun stuff that they were doing.
Now, Brent Shane did mention the Dufex not being super expensive if I wanted one of those.
Yes. There's a lot of Dufex. I made a video. It was a Greg Maddux Dufex run, and I showcased every single Dufex issue of Greg Maddux through the 90s. I think there was 23 of them, and I don't think, I think maybe 3 of them might have been over $20. And so they're quite affordable.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, maybe you want to go for like a 94 Pinnacle museum collection, the very first year they ever made a full set Dufex parallel, which is just gorgeous, beautiful cards, not expensive.
I'm remembering that as being mentioned as an option. So
yes, and they did limit them somewhat. They're not serial numbered, but there was a print run of 6,500 for those cards, which means you can be a little bit selective in grade. You can sort of hold out for a nicer, PSA 9 for some of these star players, and it still won't break the bank. I think like there's a PSA 9 Ripken for sale for like $39 or something, but you can probably find them for a little bit less even. So I don't know.
Well,
if you want,
I usually can't tell the difference between the cards from 8 to all the way to 10, then
Well, yeah, and I really can't either. For the most part, I've seen 10s with a touch of white in the corner, and I've seen 8s with a touch of white in the corner. And so, look, I mean, I don't understand the crazy premium put on the 10 price. If you're telling me that a 10 of this card is $2,500 and a 9 is $150, give me the 9 all day and an extra, $2,400.
Exactly.
Or an 8 for 100 or whatever. So I don't know. I don't understand it. I think that 10s are really bad, flimsy investments. I think they're just, I don't understand it. I wouldn't pay it myself. It's the same card. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure the people that do care about that slab number would tell you that you just don't understand the investor game. So
well, I would say, if you're going for 10s, you're either probably the registry guy, which I understand the competition aspect of it, in which case you actually don't care about the card. You actually do just care about the number on the slab. The card could look all beat up and dingy, and that wouldn't matter to you because you're playing a different game. And so that's fine. That you're welcome to play whatever game you want. It's just, that's not the game I'm playing. So that's fine. And as for investors, again, I think that a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie in a PSA 10 personally has a lot more room to fall than it has to rise.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, if this is a $100 card or whatever this is a Beckett 8.5. So now it's perfectly centered, and it's got these 4, sharp corners, and it looks beautiful. And, I guess if you put it under a jeweler's loop, you could probably differentiate it between a 10. But that's not typically how I enjoy looking at my cards anyway. So,
and that's where I'm just under the belief that the quantity difference is going to make it so those of us in our 40s and 50s that were the biggest fans of him, once we are selling off or dying off, I think that card's going to drop personally. So
I think it's going to drop before then, to be honest with you. Well, especially this card. This card's a good example because it's actually not limited. It's like even in 10s, the pop reports thousands.
Oh yeah,
thousands and thousands. Like, so it's not scarce. It's not that rare. I don't know. And again, I say you can buy a really well-centered 9, of which there's like tens of thousands, and most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference and pick them apart. The borders are these white borders, so you're not going to see like a little touch of white on, I'm saying, unless you're getting a jeweler's loop out. And even then, you might pick the wrong one. I've seen off-centered 10s. So, what are you going to do?
All right. Well, this has been fun talking to you. I mean, we totally veered here at the end.
That's fun. It's all
from
fun.
what I'm seeing now, the timing, this is probably going to end up being 2 videos now. Maybe 90 to 94 and then 95 to 99. But
I understand. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do through the magic of editing. And so it's all going to come out just fine.
Yeah, because I don't think too many people will be keen on watching like a 2-hour plus video of just 90s. Me choosing the 90s card. So.
You'd be surprised. A lot of people do like 90s content. So, at least the 400 or 5 or however many are subscribed to my channel seem to like it. Okay, so
I think it'll be more palatable though, and more like hour chunks. So
yeah. No, I think you're right. I think an hour chunk is probably a good digestible amount for for most people in one hit.
Oh yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for all of your input. I will be compiling what you've said, Shane, Brent, and eventually putting out my choices in a separate video. So
awesome. Well, good luck to your collection. You know, my feelings won't be hurt if you don't pick any of the choices. It's fine. I wish you the best of luck building out your Hall of Fame runs of cool 90s cards. That sounds awesome. I can't wait to see as you're getting these and as you're picking them up. Just to see where your collection goes as you're growing out your collecting bonsai tree. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, I am almost complete between the years of 47 to 89. So now it's building mostly before that and now after that. So
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your help.
All right. I am so happy you made it this far. Thank you very much for watching.
You're welcome.
I'd love to hear any of your comments down below. What cards should I collect from those eras? What are some of your favorites that really stand out? Any other thoughts you have on anything you've seen here? If you want to chime in on any of the topics we covered during the bonus conversation, I'd love to interact with you. So if you could go ahead and comment down below, it's awesome. I love interacting with the comments.
Your friend sounds pretty desperate.
So with that, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
See you next time.
You have 12 hours to make your decision.
This is taking forever.